Hello everyone, Maru here. This was originally going to be part of the Frontrunner CM15 guide, but I believe that the topic is large enough that it warrants its own video. It's not just talking about fronts, however, I'm going to be talking about Festive Miracle, and I think Frontrunners have the greatest argument for taking this skill. The other roles just have other accelerations available to them, and I don't believe you should be taking Festive Miracle on anybody. Okay? That is the thesis of this video. I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're talking about the Cham Me guide. I like Sariru. I like the Cham Me guide. It's a very good resource to have. There's a lot of JP experience that he has, and I just personally disagree with one part of it, in that you should use Festive Miracle as an inherit on anybody. I don't believe that this should be an option for any character. Okay? So people get weird when I go and I talk about larger creators. Yes, it's good for business, and you can dismiss it as such. I understand that is a bias that is subconscious that I can't ever get around. However, I have always said this. I am just one content creator with just a single perspective. However, I'm going to show you my work. I'm going to show you my work, how I reach my conclusion. You can go and pick it apart. You can believe it. You can do whatever you like, but take my perspective, take what you've learned from other CCs, and go and form your own opinion. That is the basis of critical thinking. That is what I encourage around here. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess, but I will show you how I have reached my conclusion. So let's be civil about this. All right. Let's begin. Let's talk about Festive Miracle and why I don't think you should be taking this. Also, yes, I like a lot of Sariru's takes. We get to have fun with this image that we've been in Discord a lot. I love this. Now, Festive Miracle. Let's talk about it. What does Festive Miracle give? It's a 0.1 accel. If you don't have any other accels, it gives you 2.13 lengths via the simulator. If you have a 777S proc as the third recovery. Now, the thing is, on Frontrunners, and any role for that matter, is you are not winning unless you go and actually hit a 0.2, which in this case is going to be your angling and scheming inherit. If you're not in first place as a frontrunner and you don't have angling and scheming, you are not going to win this race, which, if you take it into account, angling and scheming is actually 3.61 lengths instead. So it is bigger, but that's to be expected. That's the premier acceleration. Now, the thing is with this is that if you have angling and scheming procking, you have to take into account accel stacking, which basically means there's diminishing returns the more accelerations that you take, which means Festive Miracle gets lowered slightly from that 2.6 to 1.81 maximum. Now, you can argue that it's somewhere in between, but throughout this video, we are going to be the most generous for Festive Miracle because I am taking the opposite point that you should not take this skill. So I'm going to be the most generous towards Festive Miracle. So I'll take the 1.81 lengths for Festive Miracle, and we will go from there. In order to do this, you need some sort of configuration of recoveries. Now, you can do the triple recovery setup, which is what Sariru had on the graphic, which was triple recovery. This was a pace chaser, I believe. Or you can go as a front runner. You have the unique advantage of getting Operation Cacao, which is considered one of 3 recoveries itself. And I will discuss both of these configurations because the 3 recoveries plus Festive Miracle, if you have to take base SP, it'll be 710 SP. We're going to be talking about base SP the whole thing for 2 reasons. 1, it's almost impossible to model out how many hints you're going to get. And 2, I personally believe with the strength of parents for borrows on global, it's much easier to hint skills that are not recoveries that are going and helping my point than it is to go and hint skills that are recoveries for this, or to find Christmas Oguri parents that have greens that are also that have a large green spark to hint, while also going and finding your front runner skills. So if anything, I think the hint levels actually help my point. So that is why I'm not taking them into account. And also it normalizes everything, and you can see the comparison for efficiency. We're talking about skill point efficiency in this video. Now, all this to take, you take 170 for corner recovery, 180, 160, 200 for miracle, 710 SP, and that gives you your 1.81 lengths. However, if you take Cacao, you get another speed skill, which is 0.6 lengths via the simulator. So 2 recoveries plus Cacao, you can take your poison. I have taken the most expensive recovery out for 730 skill points to get 2.4 lengths instead, okay? If you go and do something that's the most quote-unquote inefficient. It's really not, but if you just take no extra skills and you have your corners and straights and you're not double circling them, your front runner corners, your front runner straights, your style straights and corners, your mediums, straights and corners, and you double them, you get 0.1. This is the only call to action I have. For some reason, when I'm doing the stretch math, basically you have the duration multiplied by the length of the race divided by 100, you get your duration and you multiply that by the efficacy of the skill or the strength of the skill, which is 0.15 because it's a white. You should get 0.99 for single circles, but for some reason it only believes it's 0.6. I'm wondering if there's some averaging going on or if I'm missing a modifier. All this doesn't matter. In a second, I will talk about that. But hypothetically, the difference between single and double circles should be 0.66 lengths for that 110 SP for the mid corners and mid straights. But I'm going to just go and take the simulator value because I took the simulator value and the most generous offer on the Festive Miracle itself. So I will just trust that simulator has it right, that it gives on average a 0.4 for a corner straight upgrade. And so hypothetically, if you do 110 and 140 for just the upgrades on straights, corners, you should spend 500 skill points for a 1.6 length advantage. If you were to do one of the most efficient things in the game to do, which is to buy a gold skill that is relevant, you would find Killer Tunes should give you 1.848, but the sim says 1 length, so I will trust it, and you will spend 320 skill points for a length, which means 700, basically the same amount, 740 skill points or so. Was it 640 skill points? Will give you 2 lengths, which is more than what it is. So it's basically half price at that point. White skills are less efficient, but you should have a bunch of them because you don't have to change your deck at all. You basically do the same thing. It's 0.45 lengths for 160 SP. And all that math that I just did, here it is all combined together. We're talking about skill point efficiency. So the triple recovery setup has 710 skill points for 1.81 lengths for a combined total of 392.3 skill points per length. This would be useful on pretty much non-front runners. And then front runners have the advantage of taking Operation Cacao, which is able to give you, that should be 2.4 lengths, but the math is correct. 730 over 2.41 lengths, it is, yep, it's fixed right there, is 302.9 skill points per length. And then your double circle upgrades would be 312 skill points per length, actually making these some of the most efficient things in the games to do, as well as up-tempo stuff like, any white skill, Slipstream, PTO, all the expensive white skills in the game at 160 would give you 355 skill points per length. That can go up or down based on its total cost. You can do that math if you want, but I don't think it's relevant. And Killer Tunes, so any gold skill, 320 for 1 is 320 skill points per length. And if you're VBourbon and you get Operation Cacao innately, because I know somebody's going to say that, that's perfectly fine. 530 over 2.41, apologies, that math is thing is 292.81. It might be around 270, so apologies for that, but it is a little bit lower. You can just go and say it's 250 flat, and I think my argument will still go. That's just a graphic error, I apologize. So yes, if you are a front runner and you take Operation Cacao and 2 recoveries and Festive Miracle, you are more efficient than not doing it by 10 SP per length for this one little thing that gives you 1.84 lengths, so you're saving like 18 SP. Please do this. It will make my life as a late surger so incredibly easy because there is a lot of nuance to this number. There is the intangibles. We have to think outside just pure raw things. While this is actually technically tiniest bit more efficient, what's going to happen is you're going to lose because of other respects in the race. We are not just going and playing numbers game. We are playing Umamusume Pretty Derby, the numbers game that also has horse girls. So one, there's some use of the stamina. You can lower your stamina by 100 to 200 stamina, but unless you are perfectly tuning that, most likely you're getting like a white skill or 2 of value. So sure, you can go and just use the VBourbon numbers because that's an innate inherit and go about 250 SP per length. And maybe you are 50 SP extra. So you have another green skill somewhere, right? Also, this only works 75% of the time. You're doing all of this just for it to fail on you 1 out of every 4 races. And if you take a 4th recovery, it still fails 1 out of every 4 races because you proc stuff early. So even at max wit, you are basically going and RNGing your entire game plan that you have 1.8 lengths and you're instead getting 0 where everyone else is getting their skills 75% of the time. There's no granulation like regular skills happen. The more important point is that this is not mid-race, and you are a front runner, but this goes for any role in particular. This is not mid-race. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a front runner that just goes and doesn't do this and just goes and buys more mid-race white skills, right? If they go and they just use white skills, just up tempo as an example, in the middle, and they spend the 730 skill points that you're spending on all this stuff, and they do it at this efficiency, they're going to get 2.05 lengths, and they're going to be a length and a half in front of you just because they decided not to do that in the mid-race. Remember that this will proc right before the actual spurt. So it will not have any account in the front runner battle of who is going to get first and who's going to get that sweet 3.6 lengths that angling and scheming gives, right? Because this gives 0.6 mid-race for the Operation Cacao. And so you basically are losing 3/4 of an Operation Cacao in this. And if you want to go and say, hey, I'm good enough that I have enough mid-race with my parents, and because I am so good at this game that I can build a perfect frontrunner that doesn't even need this 1.45 lengths. My counterpoint to you is, why are you not just playing Saiyan Sky? Because Saiyan Sky doesn't have Operation Cacao. That is the reason why Saiyan Sky is technically behind Maru and VBourbon in the meta, but she just gets angling and scheming, which is a 0.4 instead of a 0.3. So you're just getting like 6 lengths. If you're going to take this gamble, just play the character that requires more mid-race if you're going to go and grab more mid-race anyways, right? If that's your belief, you're going to go and do this instead of playing the character that gives you 0.1 more accel with all the hoops to go through. Angling and scheming gives 3.61 lengths. It's completely OP. It's double that basically for the 0.4. The other intangible is the parenting. And this is something that we haven't really talked about too much on this channel, but parenting is sort of the way to keep progressing your account. And there's both long-term and short-term disadvantages to doing something like this. First of all, if you are not one of these 3 characters, VBourbon, Saiyan Sky, or Christmas Augury, one of them has to be one of your grandparents, which means at West, you are flipping a 50-50 if you have 3-star greens with great affinity on both sides. So you have doubled your runs, which is going to double your amount of failures, basically, because every other run, you're going to fail to get Christmas Augury. Alt, which means if this is part of your game plan to win, you are going to frustrate yourself immensely. You've doubled your runs and you have made your parents a lot worse. The other thing is, if you are VBourbon, you can go and make a Christmas Augury parent and a Saiyan Sky parent. And one, you either have to spend time making your Christmas Augury parent, have a bunch of recoveries and stuff on it, and instead of just using one of the good frontrunner parents that already exists. You see, you are basically going and translating a need for a Christmas Augury parent rather than getting a good parent that actually has good greens and groundwork for you, if that makes sense. There's so many skills on a frontrunner that they need, and there's so many good frontrunner parents out there that if you're nerfing yourself by picking a character that people don't run as frontrunner, you have to make a specialized parent. That makes sense? And you're doing this all for marginal returns. I kind of been like beating around the bush a little bit, but 50 SP over the course of a run, we're talking about less than a green skill at this point. So you're doing all this hassle and trouble where instead you can just go and make your standard front runner parents better, and that's gonna go and make it so that you not only have a short-term increase in the number of mid-race skills that you proc via white sparks on your characters to make your mid-race better, but also you can use those in future CMs where this is like only useful on Christmas Augury mats for mediums. That makes sense? And the thing is, there's so many of these mid-race skills that you will never really have enough SP at this point for at least another year or two. I talked with a lot of the people in Sidecord on this to try to compile this because, yes, I play late surges and end closers. But 4760 is the number we did without having to go too far forward for these medium tracks, just getting like gold skills and white skills. And even at a discount, you're not going to have enough if you end up proccing it, which means you should be going and making your parents better for these white skills, because you will never run out of things to buy in skill points if your parents are good enough and give you more things. The other thing is that you have to actually source these, and you're frustrating yourself because you have to source Corner Recovery, 777, and Moxie, unless your name is Summer Maru, who has all 3 of these. But Summer Maru is the thing that kind of was the dagger. But let me see here first what I was saying. So yes, If you are Summer Maru, you're flipping, so you have doubled your runs, so you have your own problems itself, but you don't have to go and look at the recoveries. The thing is that, again, you have to go and put these in your parents rather than these in your parents, and I would much rather have greens in groundwork because they're useful later. And the dagger, like I said, that kind of brought me to this conclusion is if you're going through all of this hassle, why are you not just triggering Summer Maru ult on the 777 timing? I know it seems weird, but if you're going to go through the hassle of Festive Miracle, just remember that even as an inherit, Kiss for Courage is a speed carryover skill that gives you 1.34 lengths at base anyways, which means you need 200 for the inherit, 160 for the 777S, and you are spending 268.7 SP per length, which is basically the same as being exactly VBourbon and better than pretty much any other efficiency calculation that I've done on this list. So this also doesn't give diminishing returns to your angling and scheming, so there's a lot of additional lengths that I'm not even taking into account for this. I would rather you do this for multiple reasons. And also, if you are Maru and you are going and using Festive Miracle as a trigger because, hey, you need to get your recovery for Kiss for Courage anyways, you are actually losing lengths because you could have also just taken 777 and done the same thing with the innate, and that innate is more powerful and you have 2.3 lengths instead of the 1.8 that you get from Christmas Oguri. So you are basically spending 400 SP to lose 0.5 lengths on Maru if you're going to gamble in this respect anyways, right? And so I would much rather you, instead of go and build a parent like this, where you're going and throwing her on a grandparent, or building just a Christmas Oguri parent you're never going to use outside of mediums again, just to do this one little thing, I'd rather you just put Summer Maru in the grandparent slot. And if it procs, it procs. Two things. First of all, probably a better thing to do is just get the 1.3 lengths from Kiss for Courage and 777. Second thing, if you look at this, what do these look like? They look like front runners, which means that you're going to be able to, one, find borrows of these much easier. Two, you're going to loop the characters better. And yes, I know Summer Maru's affinity on all that. We're in Track Blazer. Affinity for Maru is, I mean, if you go and you look at the loopers, they have made 100, 120 affinity Summer Maru Zenski parents. Yes, it'll help hurt your affinity a bit, but I think you're going to find better parents with Summer Maru Zenski, either as a grandparent or as your parent to make your own parents. And I think that those greens and those groundworks and those mid-race skills that are on these ridiculous frontrunner parents are incredibly more valuable than whatever any Christmas Oguri player is going to give you with the random recoveries that they do. For every other role besides frontrunners, if you are going and planning on taking Festive Miracle, just know that you are pretty much not winning this game if you don't do one of these things. Dober alt or Ryan alt and or Ryan alt, or Nimble Nav or NSM, which means you need to hit 0.4 at some point. When you take 0.4, your Festive Miracle is going to be 1.09 lengths. If you take 0.2, you have the 1.8 lengths. It's not getting you there either because you have spent 700 skill points on recoveries instead of doing what you need to do, which is get all your Uma stands, get your late race, get your mid race, okay? So every other role doesn't have as much of an argument as these frontrunner players, and I don't believe you should be taking it on frontrunners anyways. That is it. These have been my thoughts. I know some people will disagree. Feel free to put that in the comments and discuss. Let's be civil about it. But these is what I have gone and I've tried to quantify my thoughts because the initial theory, the initial feeling that I've had is that this is not an efficient skill whatsoever. I've just been trying to go and put it into words. So yes, there may have been minor mistakes. I think we are within the order of magnitude that I've at least shown that there is much easier things that you can do that both give you a long-term benefit on your account via parents and also the short-term benefit of not frustrating yourself because instead of having a real hard thing to do, which is grab 3 recoveries and get the specific skill, and hopefully that gives you a little bit in the late race, which means you also need a lot of mid-race. Instead, why don't you just go and pick any mid-race skill in the game? There's like 25 of them. Okay? Hope that this has been at least enjoyable to you. Take care, everyone. Burb out.